Okay, 6, 5. Well, good afternoon, everyone. How are you? This is Bob Gumbs with the Concerned Forum, and here we are, another Saturday. And I hope that everyone is enjoying their weekend so far. This is going to be a pretty interesting show. I hope that you folks find it informative. I'm going to let my guest introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Arnie Weiss. You want me to tell something about my
Yes,
background?
please.
I have been active in politics and civil rights activities for close to 60 years. I hope I don't look that old, but I have been. And some of the things I've done, I was a campaign chairman for Ed Koch, who then went on to be the mayor. I was campaign chairman for Bella Abzug, Herman Badillo, and was very active in civil rights activities. I was in Mississippi in the 60s with my background in politics. I was down there living with an African-American family, and they were running their first candidate since Reconstruction, and I was there advising them on that. And one of the things I found, when you give to other people, you find that you walk away getting even more for yourself. It was an incredible experience for me. I can give you details about it if you're interested.
Well, we might wind up getting into that, but tell me something. Because I believe before the show started, I was talking to you about the experiences that I had when I was stationed in Mississippi. I was down there for almost over a half a year, and I mentioned to Arnie that I was stationed at the same area where the 3 civil rights activists, 2 white and 1 African American, were murdered by the Ku Klux Klan. And this was back in '64.
Yeah.
And these 3 young men were, I'm not going to say murdered, they were actually slaughtered.
Yeah.
And their bodies were thrown into an old earthen dam. And I assume that you were down there around that time.
I was there the very next year.
Oh,
and things were very scary down there then.
What was it like?
Well, I'm going to tell you about the most scary experience I had. When I went down to Mississippi, I stopped in Washington to meet with some of my friends who were doing some civil rights lobbying, and I worked with them. I told them I was going to Greenville, Mississippi, and they said to me, "Oh, that's right near a town named Anguilla." And a woman named Pearlie Thomas, an African-American, was beaten by a sheriff, broke her hand. If you go down there, could you go to Anguilla, find out the name of the sheriff, get an affidavit? I said, sure, no problem. And so I went down to Greenville. There was a white man and a white woman who were running the operation, basically a lot of black people working. And I asked him about going to Anguilla. He said, I'll take you down there. I said, no, you can't take me. You're the boss. You got to be here. How about Joe, who was an African-American guy? I've talked to him. He's willing to take me. Arnie, what you don't know about Mississippi is, in Mississippi, a white and a black do not drive in the car together. Oh, okay. So he took me down there. And I said, what is this town like? This town Anguilla. We're going to be safe there? No problem, we'll be in the black part of town, and that will be safe. I said, what is that town like? He said, well, we haven't made an impact there yet, and they're scared to death. So he drives me down, we go to Anguilla, we are in the black part of town, but it's such a small part of town, as we're knocking on doors down the street, the other side of the street is white, and they're all checking us out and looking us over, and I'm getting scared. And the blacks were so scared, they didn't tell us anything. He says, I have an idea. And we drive out to a suburb, and he parks the car in the garage, but pointing out, leaves the motor on, and goes upstairs. He says, I'll talk to the people up here. You sit in the car and wait. No problem. I'm there about a minute, and a pickup truck comes 6 feet in front of me, right in front of the driveway to the garage. There's 4 guys in it. They got bats, clubs, pitchforks. They stare at me for about 3 minutes, and they drive away. That's when this kid comes down, and I said, they know we're here. They know we're here. And I'll never forget the exact words he said to me. He said, Arnie, they knew we were here the minute that we came to town. They have us in the palm of their hands. If they want us, all they need to do is squeeze. But they won't do it until we leave town. So that means we have all the time to go about our business and find out who broke Pearlie Tubman's hand and get the affidavit.
Oh, my God.
I was terrified when he said that, but we did it. We found out the name of the sheriff. We got an affidavit, and we sped out of town at about 300 miles an hour. And so here I am. I made it.
Well, fortunately, you made it. You lived through it. Thank God, so that you're here to be with us today. Now, it's ironic because this was in like 64, 65.
Right.
Folks, you have to excuse me because my Veterans Administration glasses seem to be acting up. The frames, I mean. But it's funny because 64, 65, now this is the height of the Cold War. We had just went through, if you're not old enough or you weren't around, we had just gone through the Cuban Missile Crisis. And this was a crisis that brought us that close, literally that close, to the end of civilization as we know it.
I remember all that.
I know you remember.
I lived through that, yeah.
Yeah. And it's supposed to be the United States and our allies versus Soviet Union / Russia and her allies. And, you know, it's funny because you had, African American, Hispanic, Asians, Native Americans in the military at that time. And, a boy coming out of Mississippi goes into the military. Oh, and Vietnam was starting to get kind of warm.
Right.
Okay? Because the Gulf of Tonkin was, 64? No, I'm sorry, 65, if I'm not mistaken.
That seems like about right, yeah.
Yeah, because we had advisors going over there before that. But we actually started deploying troops for the long haul in 65. So here it is. I mean, I'm not going into the politics of right, wrong, good, bad. We're not talking about that now.
No, we lived through that then.
Yeah, but we are just talking about the fact of what was going on.
Right.
And just think about it now. If you're from Mississippi, you are in the military at different parts of the globe, standing toe-to-toe against the Soviet Union. And we're supposed to be representing freedom, democracy, good ice cream, apple pie, right? And yet, people of a dark skin color are made to cower in fear because they seek the right to exercise their constitutional right to vote. And it just dawned on me while he was relating that experience to you all that this is a very strange country, okay? It can be very strange at times. Now, I'll tell you what's even stranger.
And I want to tell you a story on that issue in a minute.
Okay, now, well, you go ahead and tell your story. I want to hear it.
Well, the African-American family that I was living with, it's a lovely family that were taken when I was in Mississippi. And the husband was registered to vote, but the wife wasn't. She said, I want to register to vote. And he said to her, you can't register. You're working for white families. You're the only source of income. If you register, we're going to risk losing any income we have. And she said, it's my duty, and I'm going to do it. And she went and registered to vote while I was there. These were magnificent people I was living with, and the entire group that I was working with there.
Extraordinarily brave people.
Right, and they were so poor. And I remember when I came into their house at night, it was such a small. Their apartment, the first door you walked into was their bedroom, and it was so small, I had to go catty-corner over their bed to get to my room.
Whoa.
And the first morning I get there, they come in with a bag full of delicious food for me that they spent the money that they didn't have to get for me. That's how nice they were.
You know, when you tell me things of that nature, I mean, I was like a little kid, at that time. But I remember, as a matter of fact, I kind of grew up with that. Think about that. I grew up to join the military, to defend the country that I have grown up where my people get beaten every day on the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah.
Because you remember before they started showing, Vietnam on the 6 o'clock news, they were always showing civil rights demonstrators being beaten.
Yep.
And the irony, I mean, there is just so much irony to American history that you really have to sit down and think about it. Because remember, as I said earlier, we're the blue, we're the ones that represent, freedom and democracy. And, you have the bad Soviet Union. But my God, what Americans did to their fellow citizens. And the quirk of it is a lot of folks down there in Alabama and Mississippi, they still resent people of color. They still resent black people.
Yeah. As
if to say, hey, well, all these problems, that's how they talk. As a matter of fact, I've noticed a lot of times when you're talking to people who are, bigoted, they'll always say something like, well, everything was fine until all these problems started. What do you mean problems started? I wanted to vote. Why the hell should that be a problem?
Yeah.
But see, that's the mentality. And as a matter of fact, you can still, you still see that same type of thought pattern when you talk about Donald Trump and the people that follow behind him.
Oh, you just ruined this event here. You mentioned that name. My God.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. I forgive you.
Okay.
It was for a positive reason.
Yeah. But, it's weird because it's just like when you look on the news, right, and you see these Trump rallies. I call them Klan rallies. That's what they remind me of. I'm sitting there, I wonder when they're going to bring out the first lynching victim.
Yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to say, and I think it needs to be said, and I think that, I'm a Democrat, but I'm also an American. Or I should say I'm a Democrat and I'm an American. And I think that what the Democrats need to do, we need to be honest with the American people. We need to stand up and say that this guy is a fraud and he's a traitor. I mean, literally. He every day that he's in the White House is a betrayal to the United States.
And a major risk of God, what is he going to do next?
Big time security risk. I spent half of my naval career as an intelligence technician. And this guy is a danger. And I am so angry with the Republican Party. And you have to remember, my parents, like most black people here in New York, especially looking at the fact that my dad was from the Caribbean, was from the Caribbean, they were Republicans.
Is that so?
Yeah. Most of the adults where I grew up at in the projects, who participated in the electoral process, and back then just about everybody did, they were registered Republicans, and then after Kennedy came on the scene, they voted Democratic.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, people forget that a lot of those folks, they kept staying registered as Republicans, but voting Democratic up until, 68, 69? Because you got to remember, and I'm sure you will remember this, Arnie, the main civil rights champion on the mainstream was a guy named Richard Nixon. Everybody forgets that. There was a big thing in, was it Look or Life magazine?
Yeah.
Talking about the great civil rights figures of the 50s. Nixon's on the top of the list.
I don't remember that, and maybe I just eliminated it from my mind.
I think you might have eliminated it from your mind, like a lot of folks did.
Yeah.
But that was the big thing. And see, he screwed up because Kennedy, remember that whole thing when they had Martin locked up during the campaign?
Yeah.
And Kennedy called Mrs. King. Nixon didn't. And that's one of the reasons why Kennedy got all those black votes, because he showed that he gave a damn.
Yeah.
Now, talking about Trump, which, I know what you mean. Just mentioning the guy's name.
It's okay. I forgive you for that.
Okay. But this man, he's, it's not whether or not, he may not realize what he is doing in terms of actually betraying his country. But the point is that he has, and he is. Now, you're running an intense campaign, okay? Why in the hell is your campaign people, why, I forgot, I know it's over 140 times. Why is your campaign going to be in contact with Russian oligarchs, and more than half of these guys and gals are former KGB people, which I know from my time in the intel world, there's no such thing as ex-KGB. Once in, always in. Why are your people going to be in Europe confiding with Russian KGB people? Your political campaign. You're running for president of the United States.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's not my people. I don't support anybody who does anything like that.
Oh no. I'm just saying in general. Why is he doing? Why was his campaign so intimately tied up with Russians?
Because they were giving him this dirt on Hillary.
Okay.
That's why he was.
Okay.
And he doesn't. People are saying, why isn't he doing anything about this? The Russians came in and they undermined our democracy, and they want to do it again.
Yeah.
You want to know why he's doing it?
Why?
Because he won the election because they did it. He would love them to do it again and get him more votes.
I agree.
He wants.
I agree.
That's why he doesn't want to stop the Russians from interfering. They interfered and got him elected, or helped get him elected.
Well, see, that's the danger. Now, he goes and he has these meetings with Putin, just him and Putin, no Americans there.
Right, so we don't know what he said,
Exactly.
what he gave away.
Yeah. Our presidents, American presidents, as a rule, they don't do that. Why is he doing that?
The thing is, when you call him a traitor, you're right, because he's a traitor for this reason. He doesn't do things for the American people, what's best for the American people. Everything he does is what's best for me. How will I look good? How will I look strong? And what the impact is on the American people is of no importance to him. It's all, how do I, Trump, look good?
Well, let me make this along the same lines. If you remember, his son-in-law,
Jared?
Yeah, that's another thing him and Trump have in common. They blow their father's money, okay, on bad investments. Remember this kid with the building, what was it, either Broadway or Fifth Avenue or Park, one of those three.
Yeah.
666, that's the
666,
building number?
yeah.
Right. Well, Jared had the idea of setting up a secret backdoor channel straight into Moscow, straight into the Kremlin.
Yes.
Now, why in the hell would this kid, who barely makes it in the world of New York real estate, why in the hell would he get this idea to have a backdoor channel to our primary adversary?
Because that was the primary adversary of the United States, but it was an assistance to Trump.
Boom.
That's why he was doing it. You know, and they wanted to have this channel because the Russians were giving him dirt on Hillary Clinton, and he could win the election based on that, and he wants to win the next election based on it again. That's why they do it.
Well, see, these are the questions, I should say, that our Congress needs to ask.
Absolutely.
Because, Mr. President, America was attacked. It wasn't done with bombs this time. It was done through high technology.
Yes.
Your job, okay, when you took your oath of office, is to preserve and protect our Constitution. So therefore, we'd like to know, what initiatives have you created to better ensure the sanctity of our vote?
And the answer is in one word: none.
Okay. So my next question is, why?
And it's what I said before, because he is the beneficiary of that stuff. He gets the dirt, and that's what he's doing.
Well, I'll tell you something else, and I know maybe some Democrats might, I don't know, they might have a little disdain for what I'm going to say next, but I believe in truth-telling. And quite frankly, if you know a guy that is doing things that harm your country, and you support that person, what does that make you?
It makes you a collaborator and just as guilty as the guy who's doing the bad stuff, and that's the Republicans in Congress. They're standing up for him. They should be standing up and saying, stop that, and they're not. They're supporting him.
See, this is what really disturbs me. And I'll give you a prime example.
And because, excuse me to interrupt him, because they got their big tax cut. He's doing these things for them, and so they don't care about all the terrible things he's doing. They gave him the great tax cut for all the 1%. And that's why they're doing it for him, and they don't care.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because you talk about this phony tax cut, which the middle and poor classes have not really benefited from in the least. Why is it, and you just finished talking about the good folks down there in Mississippi, why are white Mississippians and Alabamians, because those are the main people in those states who are supporting Trump, you say that you're so patriotic down there, you raised all types of hell about football players taking a knee, black football players taking a knee to show up the whole thing about police mistreatment of people of color. And you say, oh, well, they're not patriotic, they have no respect for the flag. I'm trying to understand why a good old boy from Mississippi or Alabama that they got the Confederate flag on the top of the truck and they got the United States flag, you know, sewn on their gas station uniform.
Yeah.
Why are you so patriotic and you raise hell about the brothers who take a knee, but this President Bone Spur, he says John McCain was not a hero.
Ridiculous.
All right? Probably the most heroic American that we've had.
In recent times.
In recent times.
Yeah.
And I know his daughter doesn't like for Democrats to use McCain as a political thing. But, sweetheart, this is not political.
No.
We're talking about the life of our country here.
Right.
And I want to know, why is it a man that basically volunteered to spend 5-6 years in the North Vietnamese prison camp, beaten every day? He volunteered for that. He could have went home. They offered him a chance to go home, but he wouldn't do it.
No.
Because he said there were men who have been here longer than me.
Exactly.
And that's how we roll in the United States military. And that man's not a hero?
That man is an incredible hero, and I'm a Democrat, lifelong Democrat, but I so respect John McCain. He was such a magnificent American patriot. He was great.
Yeah.
And to have this president criticizing him and dragging him down is just outrageous.
Yeah. So this is what I don't understand. They claim that they're so patriotic. That's the first thing. Second thing, this is a guy, supposedly, this is the type of person that you hate the most. Rich people that sit on their ass and won't even serve their country, right?
Yeah.
This guy not only did that, he went 6 times. 6 times he lied. 6 times he got his daddy to pay a doctor to lie about his ineligibility for military service. Yeah. And see, the thing that really drives me up the wall about this is that those folks, and I am picking on Alabama and Mississippi because you guys make the loudest noises when you talk about loving the country and patriotism. And I'm trying to understand how in the hell you guys manage to balance that. Because the man is not patriotic. He thinks that patriotism is for fools. And yet you cling to this man. See? That's what makes me so angry. You see the man has stolen the country. Any damn fool can see that he has something going on with the Russians that he should not have as president of the United States.
Absolutely.
But you don't say nothing about that. You see how he denigrated.
You're talking about the Republicans now.
I'm talking about the Republicans. I'm talking about those folks in Alabama and Mississippi that run this patriotism shit, that talk about people of color, like black and Hispanics and Jewish people. Somehow they get the impression we're not as good Americans as they are, that we're not as patriotic. Why? Because we stand up and we speak out against injustice? That doesn't make us any less patriotic.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. It's also extremely hypocritical. People like Billy Graham's son. That guy is an anti-Semitic, bigoted knucklehead.
Yep.
But he's a lot of things, but one thing he damn sure ain't, and that's patriotic. And that's ridiculous.
And that's why we're mounting a major campaign to get rid of him, to make him past history. We're doing that.
I hope that we can be successful. But I just wanted to make those points, okay?
Good points.
About the so-called patriotic president, which is really a joke.
It is a joke.
He worries, his primary concern for him and his family is their damn bank book and nothing else. It's very strange to me. A family that's 4 generations, 5 generations, grandfather, father, Donald, his kids.
Yeah.
They've been here. That's 4 generations that they've been in this country. This country has gone through 5 wars since they came to the United States. Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. There's 5 wars. It's very strange. It will be very strange when you can find a family of immigrants, because that's what the Trumps are. They're an immigrant family. They're not some of these people that came over on the Mayflower. Okay? Senior Trump was a kid running out of Germany because he didn't want to join the army.
Yeah.
And this is before Hitler and all that other crap. We're talking about the 1890s, right? Through all that time, nobody ever served in the military. Now he's trying to figure out a way he can taste it to have us go to war against Iran. And you could be damn sure that the Trump sons, they are not going to be walking no patrols, flying any combat patrols. They're not going to be deploying in the Middle East or any of the things that military people do.
They're going to get your relatives and my relatives. They're not going to do that. That's us.
There you go.
But enough about him. He's just a horror show, and we've got to make sure.
Well, see, here's the thing, and this kind of ties in to what I wanted to talk about now, because in this time of Trump, where it's in fashion, it's in season, anti-Semitism is fashionable now. Killing black men by police, unfortunately, in some parts of the country, that's become fashionable. And see, with a guy like Trump in the White House setting the tone, we have to talk about police brutality.
Right, and that's what I want to talk about now.
Right, but let me say this first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression. There are some damn good cops out there. I know, okay? As a matter of fact, before I went into service the first time, there was a good cop that really helped to, he kind of helped to get me on the right path when I was a teenager. So anybody that tries to say that, this show is responsible or believes in denigrating cops or denigrating the police force, they're talking through their butt. Okay, I put it to you straight up. Law enforcement is a necessary thing. It's something that we must have. That's part of civilization. If you don't have law enforcement, if you can't feel safe in your community, you're not living in a civilized community. And police are necessary for that. Unfortunately, you have a situation basically brought about by the pressures in society where some police officers are not good police officers and they do bad things. And when those bad things happen, we need to speak on them. I mean, what do you think about
I agree. That? I think being a policeman is not an easy job. They're doing a fantastic job, but there are a fair number of them that are not good people. And aside from being active in politics, electing good people and getting good programs done, I'm active with a group that is trying to make the police accountable. The bad ones.
Right.
And that's the important thing. In other words, we can't just say, oh, isn't that a terrible situation? What are we going to do about it? And so this group that I'm working with is called the ECRB, Elected Civilian Review Board. When I was active in politics in the 60s, we came up with the idea of getting a civilian review board to review police complaints of misconducts. I was active that 60s. We got it passed in New York City. We had a civilian review board passed. Unfortunately, it got into the hands of the politicians, and they undermined this civilian review board, and I'll give you some more facts about it in a moment, and made it terrible, a terrible board that wasn't doing its job anymore, the civilian review board. In fact, when we were pressing this, the name of what we were looking for was Civilian Review Board. When the politicians got hold of it, this is important because this little change of the name shows you where they were going. They changed it from Civilian Review Board to Civilian Complaint Review Board. In other words, they took the civilian reviewers out of it and just made it a civilian complaint. So there is this board, but they're totally ineffective because of the way it's structured now, which was done by the politicians over the years. It's tilted toward the bad police.
Yeah.
Now, here's what we want to do to change it. First of all, right now, all of the members of this board that review police misconduct, they're all appointed by top politicians. These top politicians need to work with the police. They can't get the police unhappy, so that they are tilted toward the police, and the people that they appoint are tilted toward the police. So our first proposition is elected Civilian Review Board. So in each community, we will elect members of the Civilian Review Board, not the Civilian Complaint Review Board. We will elect those people. Those people will have the obligation of speaking to their community once a month about what's going on in their community. They can, if they don't do a good job, they can be recalled. That's part of our bill. We have a bill that's introduced. We have a sponsor and sponsors in the city council, and we're also trying to push it to the civilian. There's a city council amendment charter commission now, and we've got this bill going in both places. So the first thing it would do would be to elect civilians to make the review, not to have these appointed people who are all tilted toward the police. Now, let me read to you something from an article in the New York Times just in May 9th, I think it was, because it tells you what the situation is with the Civilian Review Board.
Okay.
The name of the article, the title of the article is Chokeholds Still Used by Police, Records Show. And what this, I'm going to quote from you, I'm putting on my glasses because I need them. Here's, which tells you about the ineffectiveness of this board. The Civilian Complaint Review Board, civilian complaint, not civilian review, remember, an oversight agency that investigates allegations of police misconduct, has substantiated significantly more complaints each year than it did before the Earl Gardner case, finding evidence that 40 officers have used chokeholds since the beginning of 2015. Remember, Eric Gardner was killed by a chokehold. He kept saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, right. And they just continued, and he died. Yeah. In 2013, in 1993, the police barred chokeholds. They barred it. And after Earl Gardner's death in 2014, the police commissioner, Bratton, promised to this comes from the article, to retrain officers and crack down on this terrible practice. And as I said, despite that, 40 officers were held to have chokeholds since the beginning of 2015. Going back to the article, still only 10 of those officers, 10 out of the 40, were known to have faced discipline for their actions. Isn't that incredible? And that's from the board's data. It's not something I made up. That's from the Civilian Review Board. Right. And listen to this statistic. All told, less than 2% of the 820 complaints over the last 5 years by civilians are known to have led to an officer being disciplined. That means of 820 complaints made by civilian about being mistreated, only 2% were upheld. What they're saying is 98% of the civilians were making up phony complaints. That's ridiculous. So that's what's happening with this board. They are tilted toward these bad police, and they don't find these police guilty. So the first thing is to get people elected who will be civilian, independent, impartial reviewers. That's number one. Second thing is, even when this terrible board does find a policeman guilty, the police commissioner has the right to disregard that, and he disregards the great bulk of them. In other words, 50 get held to be doing something wrong. The police commissioner reduces the crime in 38 and disregards the other 12. So we want to have the commissioner being bound by what the board says.
Right.
Now the third thing, our third principle here is that once a police commissioner is now charged with a complaint, a criminal complaint, he gets prosecuted by an independent person that gets elected, not by the district attorney. Why? Because the district attorney works with the police on an everyday basis, so he's going to be tilted toward the police, and he's not going to do justice. That's why you have Earl Gardner, who was killed. I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Nevertheless, they continued. He was killed. He was not indicted in New York State. The federal government been working on it for years. They will probably not indict him. And now the only thing that's left is they have a hearing to maybe punish him as a policeman, and nothing's happening there. So we've got to restructure this civilian complaint board, so it's elected civilians that make the decision. The police commissioner cannot disregard it, and if there's a prosecution, it's done by an independent counsel.
Now, see, I shake my head because the inner details of what you're referring to there, I'm ashamed to admit it, I did not know. Okay? Yeah. I did not know that the review board situation was that bad. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And what's even more ridiculous to me, figuratively speaking,
Arnie Weiss,
oh my, I'm gonna.
Somebody calling
you. Got to call you back. I'm in the middle of an interview.
Oh, I like the way you did that. Nice.
Yeah, that was my wife. She was checking on me.
Oh, that's the wife?
Yeah.
No, I didn't mean anything.
No, but
I know what that is, dude.
My lovely wife.
I hear you. Bringing some flowers tonight, too.
Okay.
But I will tell you that this makes me so angry, because we turned the clock back. And I'd say what's ironic, we turned the clock back a little ways, and you wouldn't be sitting there. My dad would be sitting there. Because one of the things, my dad, rock rib Republican, and union activist. He was a shop steward for Local 452.
Oh.
Candy and Confectionery Union. So I was raised in a Republican/union household, okay? And one of the things, because he was also, him and my mom were also, I hate to use the term civil rights activists, but that's what they were. They were civil rights activists. And can you imagine a union activist, a civil rights activist, and an extremely active Republican? You wouldn't, that would be impossible nowadays.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the 50s and 60s. And he was fighting back then, because I can remember this from 1963, 62, and he was fighting for a civilian review board, because he always had a saying, no organization can be allowed to police itself.
Right. Good for him.
And, I know he's up there somewhere laughing.
Yeah.
But that's one thing, he was right about that. That's just like in the military. If something happens on a ship, they bring somebody from the outside
Yes.
to investigate.
Yes. Yes.
That's why every department has an IG office, Inspector General's office.
Right.
Now, I was also wanting to say this. There's somebody that I would love to have on this show. Maybe have you and him here at the same time. I don't think it will ever happen,
I'm coming.
but I'm going to try and make it happen. You might even guess who I'm thinking about.
No, I don't know.
Lynch. I believe is he a sergeant? He's still a sergeant or a lieutenant now?
I'm not sure.
Officer Lynch. He's the head of the patrolmen's unit
Yeah.
here in New York
Yeah.
for the NYPD.
Yeah.
And from what I'm listening to him and reading his comments, he thinks that people like yourself, people like Bob Gumbs, people like my buddy Luis, right? All of you folks that are fighting to have some reputable civilian review board, that you guys are the problem. I'm not including myself in that right now because I'm going to act as the host. I'm going to try and play devil's advocate. Lynch says, well, it's people like that guy Weiss. It's people like that guy Ganji and Luis. They are the ones who are creating an environment of hostility towards authority, hostility towards the NYPD. And we are the ones, NYPD, that have actually made this city money because people are now willing to investigate, are willing to invest time and money into New York because they know that their investments are safe in this city. And we, the NYPD, are the ones that made it happen.
Okay.
What do you say to that?
What I say to that is, we're the people, we're not responsible for this situation. All we're doing is we're calling attention to the public about what's happening, that it isn't working out. That's what we're doing, calling attention to the public. This is a terrible situation. As I say, most police are good people, but there are enough bad ones that make it bad for all of them. And they encourage them to do more misconduct. Where I told you what was the number? 820, was that the number?
Was it 850? I might be wrong.
820 complaints.
Yeah.
Only 2% held valid. That means 98% of the people were lying. So what that means is if the bad police are getting away with this stuff, that encourages the other bad police to continue to do it because they know there's not going to be any consequence to it. That's why I'm here. I'm not creating a bad situation. I see a bad situation. I'm trying to tell the public about it so we can pressure our people, our politicians, to change it. That's what's going on here. But I'm not the guilty person. I'm the observer who's pointing out what's happening.
See, I would tell Brother Lynch, I would tell him that when he makes statements like he has been making, that it puts many of us in mind of what we began the show talking about the racists down south who would stand by and watch black people murdered, who would murder white folks that went and tried to help, people who were trying to register to vote. And then their community, their side of the town would say, well, that's the fault of these outside agitators who are trying to stir up the blacks. We had no problems until these agitators, until these, and some of these blacks who had been up north and came back home, decided they wanted to vote and all this kind of stuff. And see, that's kind of a little bit when Lynch says things like that, it's reminiscent to me of the kind of stuff that you would hear coming out of the mouth of, nowadays we call them red states, but basically that's the kind of stuff you would hear anytime the news put a microphone to the mouth of one of those people that live down there, and that's what they would say, that, agitators are stirring folks up, and it's not the fault of the police, that the criminals are the ones.
It's so absurd. When I went down to Mississippi and other people went down to Mississippi, I was going down there and willing to risk my health and safety down there. I wasn't going down to agitate. I knew that African Americans there were being pushed around and deprived of their rights. And I felt it was my duty as an American citizen, and I'm talking for myself and all the people who went down there, not just to agitate, but to point out this terrible situation. Now, we all know it was a terrible situation of what happened to African Americans in the South. It was terrible. And I went down there and we got the situation to start moving in the right direction only because we were willing to risk our lives, go down there and assist people, because we know if it was the reverse, they would come to help us. We weren't there to agitate. We were there to call attention to the terrible things that were happening.
Well, see, that's what it sounds like.
Which is what we're doing here
Right.
on this Civilian Review Board. There are some bad things happening. We're not agitating. We recognize there are a lot of good cops, but there are a lot of bad ones, and we've got to have a structure that teaches the bad ones to become good ones.
Now, let me ask you, why now? And let me illuminate that when I say why now. Because it seems not just here in New York, but it seems across the country, but primarily a lot of these so-called red states, like that young lady from Illinois, driving through Texas to get a job, and she gets stopped for a faulty tail light or something, and she's found hung in her cell the next morning.
Oh, what a terrible situation that was.
And they're going to try and rule it suicide. Nobody's going to commit suicide for spending the night in jail. That there's no logic to that. Or that young brother that was killed, where did he live at? I think it was in Dallas. All he did was come into his own apartment.
Yeah.
And, no, excuse me. He was in his apartment, and this lady cop just comes in and starts shooting.
Yeah.
And we still don't know what was behind that.
Yeah.
But we know that the young black man didn't do anything. He was in his home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the cop, a cop killed this guy. And what do you think? Was I wrong when I said that with the accession of Donald Trump to the presidency, that in so many police departments, you have a certain type of police that feel that they can just take the gloves off and especially with people of color, do what they want to? I mean, what the hell's going on?
No, it's something that we can't allow to happen. And, of course, if you and I are going to come here and call public attention to it, then the people who are doing the bad stuff, they're going to point to us and try to make us the evil people. We're not the evil people.
No.
We're the people who are saying, hey, this is not a good situation. It's got to change. That's all we're doing. But the bad situation is they are creating it, and in order to absolve themselves, they point to us and try to make us the evil people when they are the ones that are doing the bad stuff. So we've got to continue to fight hard. And as I say, we're risking our lives to do this in many situations. And I know if it were reverse, that the people I'm helping would come and help me. The people I lived with in Mississippi were wonderful people, and they would have helped me if I were in that situation. And so that's all I'm doing. And the bad part about it is this police misconduct is really directed mostly at people of color. That's most of the people who've been shot and killed or injured are people of color, and that's really bad. And my life has been committed as a civil rights activist to try to change this situation. This is my country. It's my America. I can't live in a country that does this to people because they're of a different color.
One other thing, not to steer away, but something else, and I'm very concerned about, and I don't like it. As a matter of fact, I'm planning to go next week because it's right around my old neighborhood in West Harlem, the yeshiva there. I was raised Catholic, but I spent a lot of time in Riverside Church, and as you know, they're interdenominal.
Yeah.
And they used to take us to yeshiva all the time, the one down on 123rd Street. Had some good times there. I was a little kid. And this business about Trump and some of the Republicans trying to tag Democrats with the label of anti-Semitic, that makes me so damn angry. Listen, I have problems with the government of, and I always mispronounce his name, Netanyahu.
Netanyahu, yeah.
Yeah, or as they call him, Bibi, the prime minister
Bibi,
there.
Right.
I don't care for his party. I don't care for a lot of the things that they have done. That is a political issue that I have, okay? That has absolutely nothing to do in terms of anti-Semitism. As a matter of fact, you find that most of the anti-Semitic people, because I know from experience, if you come across an anti-Semite, you're also coming across a racist who can't stand people of color. These birds always flock together.
Yeah.
And those are mostly on the Trump side of the fence.
No, but let me tell you something. I totally agree with you. I am Jewish, okay?
Okay.
My people have lived through 2,000 years of persecution and et cetera. Okay.
Yes, they have.
And I support Israel 100%. I think it's great that we finally got our country.
Yeah.
However, I agree with you. I think Netanyahu is terrible. I think he's doing all the wrong things.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a good leader of my people out there in Israel. So don't feel bad about that. I agree with you thoroughly. And I'm not an anti-Semite because I think Netanyahu is bad, nor are you, and nor is anybody else. He's not the kind of person that I want to be standing up for a country that we need.
Yeah, because that's, and I am so glad that in his last 5 years, Malcolm X and the realization that a human being is a human being, and the way that he reached across and reached out to the Jewish community.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and all this after he made that break from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And, you know, I look at that. To me, that's like a source of strength.
Yeah. And
for a guy like Trump, see, another thing that he does, he tries to make it seem like, and I can't, you know, this really blows my mind. You could stand up and you have nothing to say about how American Jews are being murdered and persecuted here in the United States. But you're extremely pleased with Jews in Israel, see? And to me, that I find that just to be so damn hypocritical. because it's just like that synagogue in Pittsburgh
Yeah.
where they kill those 11 people.
Yeah.
Why? Because the Jews get together, and their leaders George Soros, and they're the ones responsible for the Mexicans trying to come across the border, and these idiots buy into that
It's
nonsense.
absurd. Yeah. Yeah.
And you know something? That's something I was really off my feed for about a couple of weeks after that, because as you can probably tell, I'm really into history. And I'm in the World War II, and I never thought that I would, in America, that I would see Jewish people being slaughtered like that.
Yeah.
You know, that blew my mind.
Let me tell you something. It's been 2,000 years, and Jews have been persecuted, and it's gotten better, but it's starting to get a little worse now.
Well, it's really. I'm shocked. I spent a lot of time in Europe and the Middle East, but especially in Europe, I feel real bad about that. And and Trump, he's saying, he likes this whole thing, anti-immigrant, anti-Semitic, those people, that environment. He really loves that.
Yeah.
That's a damn environment.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, my God, what the hell, we, the United States, and what we stand for. See, I'm one of those folks, and I admit it, I kind of tear up when I see one of them Humphrey Bogart World War II movies, where the United States, the world looked to us for salvation.
Yes, it did. It used to.
Like Casablanca, and quite a few others. We stood for something, and now this guy comes along, and everything that we stood for, he's using it for toilet paper.
Okay,
and
we got to.
Oh boy, let me get off that.
We got to get off him.
Yeah,
we got to beat him. That's going to be our first mission, to beat him.
But I dig what you're saying in terms of having a civilian board. Because the police are here for our protection.
Right.
They're not here for themselves. And what politicians have you gotten any support from, your group?
Well, we have some people in the city council. We have, some people who are sponsoring the bill.
Yeah.
But we're in the process of now starting to get politics. We have here. Did I bring it along? I'm not sure. No, don't tell me. Here's a list of the people who are endorsing us. There are a lot of politicians, and there are a lot of unions also. Black Lives Matter, Association of Legal Aid Attorneys, and so unions. We're getting support. NIPAN has just endorsed us also. So, and it's because living as a Jew with a history of 2,000 years of persecution that I have a feeling that I've got to help other people who are being persecuted. That's why I'm here. I'm not an agitator. I want to protect people who have been subject to the stuff that my people have been subject to all these years. And we've got to work together, and that's why you and I here, we're working together on this.
Yeah, it has to be. It simply has to be done. We can't stand by and watch this country be turned into some kind of like they're doing in Hungary, turning into a right-wing police state.
Yeah, and we can't be called agitators because we're calling out what's bad. We're calling out the evils. We're not agitators. We're disclosers. We're disclosing it. We're saying, let's do something about it. The people who are doing the evil are always going to point at you and say, you're the bad person.
Right.
But that's not what the case is.
Well, I don't know. When I was going to school, back in the days, those ancient times when they taught civics in school.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was taught that what I'm doing now, what you're doing now, it's no big deal because that's what Americans are supposed to do.
Exactly.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's why the country was built in the first damn place. But I'm going to do as much as I can to try and get this out get this out in the streets. it's not, and it's not about, that's something else that Lynch says that really upsets me. It has nothing to do with crime, okay, with supporting crime.
No.
It's about supporting law.
Exactly.
And that's
the rule of
important
law.
thing. Exactly, the rule of law.
We're losing it on the national level, and this is an aspect of where it's got to be strengthened on the local level.
Boom, you got it. Folks, I hope you enjoyed our show today. I hope that you found it educational, and I hope you also found it enjoyable as well.
Yeah, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Don't worry, Arnie is going to be back. I can guarantee you that. Man, thank you so much for being
My
our guest
pleasure.
today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
We shall see you again.
Okay.
And folks, this is the Concerned Forum. See you next week.
Okay, great. My pleasure. I really enjoyed every minute of this. Now,
Yes.
how do I get a people who are, supporting this position? How do I get them to see this?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Is this going to be on TV in a particular time, or?
Yes, it will. And I can tell you right now that it will be on.
Oh, I better take a pen so I can write it down.
Not this Saturday coming up,
Yeah.
but the following Saturday.
Following Saturday.
Yep.
What is that date? Do you have it?
I will, if I can get this damn thing to work.
Okay, not next one. Okay, I'll get that. At what time and what channel? 34, I think you
It
told me?
comes on channel 34. You're in Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in Manhattan. So it's going to be on at 3 o'clock, channel 34. I come on every Saturday.
Okay.
And I'll tell you something else, too. It's going to be on YouTube. Today is what, Tuesday?
Yeah.
This will be on YouTube by Friday.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do, I'm going to call, let you know when it's on YouTube.
Oh, great. I appreciate that so
Yeah,
much.
So it's going to be both on YouTube, and it's also going to be on TV. See, I do it like
Oh,
that.
the TV, that's the TV one.
That's
There's a
channel 34.
Yeah. And that's going to be on not next Saturday, but the Saturday after that.
There you go.
At 3 p.m.
Mhm.
Yeah. Great. Well, my pleasure to come down here and work with you on this.
I'm glad. I am so glad.
And I better get my wife now.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah. We have guests from France living with us now.
Oh.
And the food that he cooks the meals. He's great.
Man, I could
I
admire
got to
you so
tell you.
much.
I got to tell you. So they're probably wondering about me at 7 o'clock. They're wondering about dinner and all that. Okay, let me give her a call. No, not your. It was a lot later than I thought that the whole thing happened, and it's going to be on TV not next Saturday, but the Saturday after that. And it's going to be on YouTube also. I'll give you all the information. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm glad you worried. How is your tooth feeling now? Yeah. Yeah, Advil. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to talk to you now too much because there's stuff happening here. But yeah. Okay, so I'm going to come now. One of the things that we decided was that I told him how nice you were, and he says, "Well, maybe you should buy some flowers." And I said, "I will, but I'm not going to buy them because I want to get home to be with you." The flowers will come in another day. Okay. Yeah. Oh. Okay. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to do something I don't usually do. I'm going to take a cab. It's not that far. Okay. Me too, sweetheart. Bye. Yeah. Let me. Let me show you my. Where is she? Oh. There's my wife.
Oh, that's your wife?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
She's pretty, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Arnie. There you go.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, let's see. I can't get this. I don't know how to get this. Oh, God. One of these days I'll learn all about this electronic stuff.
I think I'm gonna try and get married again. My wife passed away.
Oh, gosh. That must be a horrible thing.
Yeah. Do me a favor. Put your phone number and your email address there.
Okay, I'll put my name too so it's clear.
Yeah. She passed away in '01, but she had been ill for about 5 years.
Oh, in '01?
'01.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But she was sick for about 5 years before that.
Oh gosh.
So it was kind of weird, for the longest time I was hoping that she would pull through, but unfortunately she didn't. And she passed away. She made her 26, her 30, she just turned 36.
I'm going to give you this too, my card.
Oh, excellent, yes.
So you have this. Here's all my information.
Gotcha. Excellent. We're good.
Okay. Now, the one thing I don't have is the spelling of your name.
Sure, that's, you ready?
Yeah, let me write it down on my stuff. So I have your phone number. I can always talk to you, and that's great.
Yeah.
But you're a first-rate guy. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Gumbs.
Oh, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
I just went by the sound, and I wrote it out that way, but I just thought I was spelling it wrong.
Excellent. Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
So let me ask you.
Yeah.
You've been around, things. And I want an honest opinion because for a while, not too long ago, I was getting, very depressed, and I was thinking, well, this TV idea, show idea, is just a foolish dream, and I was getting ready to throw in the towel, but somebody, I go to the Unitarian church nowadays, and they had a function there. And this guy walks up and says, I never saw him before. And he said, man, I love your show. And I said, my show? I said, oh, wait a minute. I said, you seen my show? And he said, oh, yeah.
Oh, isn't that nice?
And that really freaked me out. And I said, well, wait a minute. Let me get another opinion or two. What do you think? Do you think I have something here?
Oh, yes. First of all, you're very knowledgeable as the starting point. You have a good feel for it. But you're You're knowledgeable, you're articulate, and you're a nice person. Those are the three attributes. What more do you need?
And you get all that just from doing a show with me.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I was listening to you, and we were doing this together. You were doing most of it, and I was popping in from time to time. No, you have a good command of what's going on in the world. You're idealistic, patriotic. I get all that stuff. And we got a mission. We got to take our country back. We got to do it. I'm supporting Bernie Sanders. However, more important than getting him elected is beating the other guy.
Yep.
And if it takes somebody other than Bernie, I'm with whoever it is. I'm going to fight like the devil.
I I hear you.
We got to get rid of this guy. That's number one, beating him. You know, I think Bernie would be a terrific president, but I'd be happy if we get an adequate president to get rid of him.
If it's Joe Biden, just so big.
Joe Biden would be fine. He'd be a decent president. Yeah.
I want to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah, no, you'd sleep with him,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of good candidates there. I mean, I like Elizabeth Warren. I think she's terrific.
Oh,
yeah. And a lot of women. Isn't that wonderful?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The main thing, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, I wasn't getting up here every weekend making a damn fool out of myself.
Oh, not one bit. Let me shake your hands. You're a good guy, and you're an impactful guy.
As you can probably tell, ever since my wife passed away, I've been I have a thing with self-confidence.
Oh, yeah.
Which is funny because I used to be a kind of an arrogant little bastard. You know?
We all were back then.
Yeah.
I better get home because I know this.
I know you got.
My French guy is cooking a meal. You should see the meals he cooks. Oh my God! He came back. He was out with his daughter. His daughter's now with us too. Living with us, yeah. And they came back, and he made me hamburgers.
Okay.
And I got to tell you, it was one of the best hamburgers I ever had in my life.
Oh Lord!
Everything this guy cooks is outrageous. He is just.
One of these days, throw something in the brown paper bag. Hold on a second, Arnie. Don't forget.
Yeah. I'm hooked.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on a second.
Okay.
There you go.
Good. Yeah,
Yeah, throw something in the bag for me, a little paper bag.
Oh, let me see if I could do that. Yeah. I'll tell Olivier that he's got to do something like that.
Yeah. Oh man, I love French cooking. I loved when I was over there.
This guy he's a professor at the Sorbonne in Paris.
Oh God.
And he's here doing some. He writes a lot of articles and books, and he's doing research and meeting people.
Oh man.
He's terrific. So,
Well, I hope I get a chance to meet him.
oh, that would be nice. Let me see if I can. I'm not sure how long he's going to stay. I'm this way, right?
You know what you can do? Use the stairs right here. That would probably be a lot easier and quicker. And I'm going to see if I get to work on that thing that we just did.
Okay, great.